Okay, so that's the amount of screaming that I did when I found out about this video.
Do you remember this ad?
I don't care about this ad.
Be ready for what's next.
Okay, so it's an hour-long video already, so I'm not going...
There is a prequel to the video.
Okay, so here's the thing. Antimatter was all... Anti-electrons are already recorded to have a smaller size, not just the same, spin and opposite charge of an electron, but they don't have the same size. So symmetry in this entire video, whenever it's talked about, was never a factor to begin with. Not to mention the fact that they talk about the freaking Big Bang whenever they freaking talk about it. I don't care. At some point they talked about the Big Bang. It's disgusting. We have already disproved the Big Bang. It's not a Big Bang, it's a big ignition. Well, when did it... I don't care when he talked about it. Yeah. Also, anytime that you're trying to organize the ideas of what the hell happens... I know I'm on landscape and I'm not doing landscape. Whatever, it doesn't matter. The point is, can you actually preload the thing like I said to do? Anyway, the universe with all of its things. If you look at... I don't like this analogy. That was weird. Antimatter stuff with wave particles and everything being opposite is, again, forgetting how electrons actually look and are, which we are more recently being able to see. And they're not just these weird field excitations. You can't say they are, because that's not how they operate. So this is all fake news at this point. But then we're like, okay, so there's something about the beginning of the universe and certain amount of, like, you got all this stuff. Clearly we started with positive and negative versions of all things. Can you please give something? So here's the thing. Imagine you're in the beginning of the universe and everything ignites and becomes charged photons and then makes the energy. Now they made the stupid mistake of saying it all came from like a central point. We all know that never happened. Everything just sort of like flicked on as if you like pretend the entirety of the universe was activated all at the same time, which is like simultaneously turning on every light bulb all at once. Hard to imagine, but it's just like the idea of, in certain there's this beautiful Nile Red video of a interaction that just ripples out and it keeps on changing and rippling and doing stuff. Oh, that thing's beautiful. Should go look at that. But anyhow, similar to that, in the beginning of the universe, whatever else, everything just lights up. And what you actually have, of course, in any amount of an explosion, if you have enough antimatter-matter collisions, like they said in these experiments, you only have enough antimatter to make a very tiny amount of heat. That's nothing. So what if you have enough antimatter and matter colliding to make an explosion. Well, what's going to happen in a simulation of explosive theory, a lot of matter is going to be in these pressure zones, and then a lot of matter that is regular matter, which is more stable, is able to form in any of the areas where the pressure zones all link together. Like if you think of like nested bowling balls, everywhere in the space between the bowling balls is where you would expect the regular matter to remain. Everything else was eaten up by the explosion, because that is the weakest component of the explosion. It's the place where it's the most pushed on all sides. There is no way that you could actually annihilate anything else because it's already there. So that's how you end up with gigantic compressions of matter, creating galaxies, creating black holes, creating like the most gigantic stars. All of the matter that could exist, only some of it with antimatter is going to be annihilated. It's impossible to annihilate all of it. And actually, even in a complete there was half and half scenario, it's impossible to ever confidently say that you would only get a tiny amount of antimatter or a tiny amount of matter to remain. It's fascinating that antimatter stars could exist, and I'm not going to say that they can't. It's just extremely unlikely, but slightly irrelevant, as really it only takes real matter doing things in order to exist and do everything else that we experience. And it's fascinating that there's some antimatter in bananas. But anyhow, this whole idea of the universe having like stuff like that. But basically, throughout this entire video, and it's a freaking long video, nearly an hour, pretty much an hour, they don't mention the size of the anti-electron, the positron, as being smaller, which is textbook. We know it is. So I'm already irked by the whole idea of anti-symmetry nonsense, because we already know, like, the right-handedness, left-handedness jargon nonsense, where it's all this everything but opposite stuff. That's all fake news. That's impossible, stupid, and irrelevant. We already know the electron is smaller than, or the electron is bigger than a positron. We are aware of this. So there's all this thing about how we have this utter trap to make a thing that is the anti-atom of hydrogen and everything else, and we make it and we do the thing. It's great. We accomplished it. Good job. Whatever. No one cares. The point that I try to drive home, a few things. Stop saying Big Bang was the ignition. Stop saying stop saying symmetry. That's nonsense. The fact that we're literally in the video, they talk about annihilating matter. And guess what? It doesn't matter if it turns into light. That light then eventually gets absorbed or turns into nothing. That matter was destroyed. The entire idea that you can have matter conservation is stupid, because everyone knows you can absolutely destroy the physical form of matter. E equals mc squared means that matter turns into energy. The energy then dissipates, turns into nothing. Regular matter, if left unchecked, and antimatter, if left unchecked, will simply fizzle out into nothing, constantly destroying matter on a regular basis. That's what these experiments do. So conservation of matter is something we have to throw out the window. The weird idea of symmetry in matter is never the case. We already know that. I don't know why he's saying that. I'm disturbed. And then the whole thing about this is just one area where they are making antimatter. So if you ever wanted to do something with antimatter, their argument and their statement at the end, it won't matter. It doesn't make any difference because the tiny amounts of explosive that you can have is really actually a gigantic amount of explosive stuff compared to what we're actually making. We're going to get better at this. We're going to have more people developing antimatter. We're going to have more efficiency in development of antimatter. Literally, they talk about firing the stuff at foil in order to slow it down, and you end up losing a lot of antimatter. What if you don't have to do that? What if you just, I don't know, Bose-Einstein condensate the shit, and then you don't have to slow it down using foil. You just slow it down, and it is cold, and it is held, and, you know, you do something like that. And then convert it to where you're holding it in the electromagnetic trap, or whatever trap. Also, by the way, if you start using sound to control matter, you're going to have the ability to absolutely hold it without any concerns of it escaping just because it turns positive or neutral. Just saying, you can hold anything with sound, but we're not even trying that. So imagine the moment that you realize that you can hold the matter with sound. Now, why do they not think of that? Well, the idea of holding matter with sound is that you have to have matter in order to interact and make the sound waves work. Well, ripples in space and standing waves could be made with sound, or they could be made with another thing. And so there are ways of making better better traps, better ways of holding antimatter, better, like, which is the same thing. Not only are they already able to hold it for 2 years, approximately, but you can hold more. You can do more with it. You can make it more efficiently. You can make it without as many parts lost, and on a grander scale than you've ever thought about. So I don't really care to do a proper analysis of the video. I'm just going to say this is a beginner system that literally all of this stuff about how you are currently doing it is going to be refined so much you don't lose matter. You literally can convert things directly into antimatter if you know the right process. This is a very complex system. I'm not going to say it's not complex. That is complex as frick. Shut up. But it doesn't matter because you will eventually get there.
And then we collect these antiprotons.
You'll eventually get there where this type of technology can be something that literally, I've heard of a matter accelerator the size of a penny. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that's going to be super useful and whatever else, but I'm not going to deny the fact that they have made a matter accelerator the size of a freaking penny. You don't need all of this, and you don't need any inefficiencies, and we'll get there eventually. But we're not there yet. And I literally said all you need is a tuning fork and a thing, and you can make. Now, I've talked about the atomic resonator. This thing that they're doing with the laser beam and everything else, all of this, they shoot it at the whatever, turns into apparently the neutrons and the electrons on the other side, the positrons on the other side, because of how that system works, and then it ends up being just a perfect flow of just that. And we're literally saying, let's not collect neutrons. I'm sorry, but that's a lot of matter that you could just be using instead. Convert that matter. Do another step. Whatever. Blah, blah, blah. Inefficiencies. Irrelevant inefficiencies. Stuff that could be done better. Where is the tube stuff? Like, they got this thing with the penetrap electromagnetic field thing. They got the idea of the matter hitting the particular, like, you got the energy hitting some.
And every time you hit the target, you get trillions of these collisions. And out the other side comes a chaotic spray of protons, antiprotons, and a bunch of other particles.
Yeah. So imagine if you have that. You then take all of the things that you need in all of that. You can readjust everything. You can reformat all of the different beams into, instead of just absorbing the neutrons, you could slow them down, do something else with them. I don't know, convert them as well or something. Like, I don't know. Eventually we'll get there. Eventually everything will not be as, like, this is extremely advanced compared to before with everything, you would think, where they're actually able to hold and make antimatter, but it's still very like the beginner stages of all the things. And so much, the fact that we're right next to a thing that if you could have your skin melt off, that's scary and fun. Distribution and everything, it's all fun. Whatever. So, yeah, I don't know, man. I don't like the idea of symmetry as a system that you assume is going to happen. We already know that there are all sorts of things about the different particles in the physics and the standard model of particle physics. Knowing that the positron is smaller, like, technically you could filter them out a different way. But anyhow, just by like size difference. But that's not making any sense. Like a grid system or something. No, that's not important. It's fine that the way you're dividing things. I'm just saying that you could do something. But But it was another thing about how they're slowing down and you end up with a lot of losses and whatever else. They'll get better at it.